Shabbat Shalom. This is Shabbat Chayei Sarah. We are so thrilled to have you with us this evening. For the first time, our Life Tree Ramblers have played in about 2 years. So very exciting to be back on this bima once again. And just a reminder, we don't applaud on Shabbat, but we can smile joyously. We can call out Yasher Koach. We're just so happy to be back that, gosh, at this point we can sing, dance, and jump up and down. It's really all okay. But we are so thrilled to be here. I just want to share with you so you can feel my pain. It has nothing to do with anything. My son was taking out the garbage tonight, and he found a hamster in the garbage area. And it was clear that it was not a wild hamster. It was a real pet hamster, and now we have a hamster. So I just thought you should know that. It has nothing to do with Shabbat and everything to do with oi. And on that note, let's begin with the singing of Hinei Ma Tov. We are so happy to be amongst friends with one another once again.
Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad.
It is my pleasure at this time to invite Michelle and Barbara Slogoff to the reading stand to bless and sanctify our Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kidshanu b'motztov v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue with Lechu Neranana, which can be found in our Siddur in our prayer book on page 12.
Listen with all of our hearts to hear God's voice. Lechu niranena, yai lai 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 lai, l'Adonai, lai 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 lai. Naria, lai 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 lai, litzur yishenu, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai.
At this time, we continue in our Siddur, in our prayer book, with Baruch Hu, which can be found on page 28. If you are able to do so at this time, in either body or spirit, please rise.
Lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, 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 lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach, Leolam, Leolam Va'ed. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom
Please be seated. It is my pleasure to invite to the reading stand at this time to lead us in Ma'ariv Aravim, which can be found on page 30, Jenna Rashid.
Bara ata Anai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'arviv aravim, behotma potea sha'arim, uvitfunam shaneh itim, umahalif et hazlanim, umisavir utahohamim, b'mishmerotehem rakia kirtzonu, borei yom v'layla, kolel or mipnei hosha, V'hosha mipnei or mevir yom uvein lala, anai savaot shemo, el hai v'kayam, tamid yimlo aleinu le'olam va'ed, baruch ata Adonai hamaraviv aravim. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our day. Never remove your love from us, Adonai. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohei Amo Yisrael.
We continue on pages 34 and 35 with Shema. Will the congregation please rise?
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated. It is my pleasure to invite to the reading stand to lead us in Via Hafta, which can be found on page 36, Chloe Rashid.
Ve'ahavta, et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol me'odecha, v'chayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochim mitzavecha haya, v'shinantam lefanecha, v'dibartam bam, v'shiteha b'veteha, u'v'lechteha v'aderech, u'shochbeha u'vkumeha, u'kshartam leot al yadeha, v'chayu letotavot beineneha, u'ktavtam lot beteha, leman tiskerut asitem et kol mitzotai, v'ditem kiddushim leohem, ani Adonai Elohehem, asher hotzetiatem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lahem lelohim, ani Adonai Elohehem. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
We continue on page 40 with Mi Chamocha.
1, 2, 1,
2, 3, 4.
La 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 la. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Tehilot, melech, Tehilot, melech Adonai, imloch le'olam va'ed. Malchuteta uvanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam. Ze'eli anu ve'amru, Ze'eli anu ve'amru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Torah, Tehilot, Oseh, Torah, Tehilot, Oseh, Adonai, imloch le'olam va'ed.
We continue on the top of page 43. Let's read together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapurei sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We continue with singing Vishamru, which can be found in our prayer book on page 44.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Hashkivenu?
Hashkivenu. No, just kidding. We're going to be singing Hashkivenu, which can be found in our prayer book on page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ushmor tzitenu, umoenu, l'chaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Sometimes I lay under the moon, I thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day. Oh, one day, one day, one day. Oh, all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day. Oh, one day, one day, one day. Oh.
In 6 days, God created heaven and earth, and on the seventh day, God rested. We have Shabbat as a holy time, a spiritual time of rejuvenation, for if God rested, why wouldn't we rest as well? We continue with Vishamru, which can be found on page 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. בני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
We continue now with our congregational tefillah beginning on page 46. I invite you to please rise in body or in spirit.
Anananananana Adonai. Anananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana Sfatai Tiftach. Ananananana Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Asdei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem L'man Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Chayei metim atarav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Chayei metim berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memid umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, B'ne'eman atala hachayot metim. Baruch atah Adonai, Chayei hametim. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukdoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated as we continue at the top of page 55. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat. We continue now with the words of Shalom Rav, our prayer for peace, which can be found on page 60.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam, Tasim le'olam. Hu melech, melech Adon. Ki atahu melech, Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam, Tasim le'olam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Emcha Yisrael, b'chol et ub'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, 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 Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha.
We take a few moments now for silent prayer or reflection using either the words of our hearts or the words of the pages in front of us.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. 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 Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu.
We continue now with Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our Torah service. Just as a reminder, when we do the Hakafah, when we do our processional, our tradition right now is not to reach and touch the Torah. We hope that someday in a COVID world we can do that, but not right now. So I encourage you to turn towards the Torah as we walk it through the room. You can make signs of affection towards it, but please don't reach out to touch it. Please rise.
1, 2, 3, 4. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al shlosha devarim.
Please be seated. This week's Torah portion is Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah. Ironically, it doesn't really cover the life of Sarah, but rather Sarah's death and the ways in which her family moves forward. Particularly, Abraham sends his servant Eliezer on a mission to his native land of Canaan to find a wife for his son Isaac. Eliezer sets up camp next to a well outside of the town to see if someone, particularly a young woman, might stop and offer him and his camel some water. Sure enough, Rebekah comes to the well and offers Eliezer and his camel some water. Eliezer invites himself over to stay with Rebekah's family, quite chutzpahdik if you ask me, and he retells this whole story of how he promises Abraham to go to Canaan to find his son a wife, etc., etc. You know how this goes. By the time that he finishes telling the story, Rebekah's brother Laban said, you can have Rebekah for Isaac's wife. Just like that. I'm pretty sure most of you who are parents in this room would not be willing to give away your child so easily, I hope. Anyways, that was the times that they lived in. And so that is what we will hear tonight. If you would like to follow along with your Torah reading, you can find the Torah commentaries, Etz Chaim, now underneath your chair as opposed to next to your chair. They're underneath, and you can open them up to page 130, and that is where we find ourselves. Ya'amod Leila bat Mendel ve'Yosefa le'aliyah. We invite up Laura Piacek for our aliyah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten ha'Torah. Amen.
Here we go. I rolled it and then it got rolled by itself apparently. Ve'Avraham zaken ba b'yamim, ve'Adonai berach et Avraham bechol. Vayomer Avraham el avdu zaken beito, hamoshel b'kol asher lo, simna yadcha tachat yerechi. Ve'eshbicha be'Adonai Elohei hashamayim, ve'Elohei haaretz, asher lo tikach, isha livni, mivnot haknani isha anochi yoshev b'kirbo. Ki el artzi ve'el moladati telech ve'lekachta isha livnei liyitzchak.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. And now, while we have the Torah out in our midst, we take a moment to offer prayers of healing for those in our community who are ill, who are in need of healing of mind or body or spirit. And this week in our community, we think of Elwood Frederick Bryan, Gary Tatiner, Joan Katz, Mark Zellman, Kristen Nystro, Cheryl Hildebrand, Lori Johnson, Lila Warshawski, Jim Hines, Monica Baxter, Richard Vane, Cheryl Ball, Arthur Lang, John Eulenberg, Susan Ickler, Label Cohen, Heather Borzak, Mary Hasten, Scott Fidlow, Franny Ein, Evan Georgie, Kathy Minardi, Jay Field, Karen Mullen-Koski, Bill Green, Dick McLean, Rhoda Rhodes, Quincy Newman, David Menikoff, Kathy Shapiro, and all who suffer who we know not by name. Mishaberach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov ve'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah hu yivarech v'yirapeh et kol cholei Yisrael v'yishlach lachem bimheira refuah shlema refuat hanefesh urefuat haguf v'nomar. Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal all who are stricken. May the Holy One of Praise mercifully restore them to health and to vigor. May God grant them health of body, health of spirit, and health of mind, and let us say, Amen. We continue now with the words of Misha Berach.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue now with Hagba and Galila, the lifting and dressing of the Torah. Ya'amod Adam ben Ezra Hagba, Ta'amod Leah Yocheved bat Elia Hirsch v'Shoshana Galila. Please rise.
V'zot haTorah asher sa Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe.
Please be seated. We continue now with our prayer for Israel, read by Jesse Notaris, and our prayer for America, read by Renee Gershman. Those can be found on pages 258 and 259.
O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread it over the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there.
Prayer for our country. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Help us to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we serve you. Bless our country, that it may always be a stronghold of peace and its advocate among the nation. May contentment reign within its borders, health, and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship among the inhabitants of all lands, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. We praise you, O God, the source of peace.
Please rise as we return the Torah to the ark.
Etz Chaim hi למחזיקים בה בתוכך מאושר דרכך דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיך shalom. The Torah is a tree of life to them that hold it fast, and all of its supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Etz Chaim hi, Etz Chaim hi, למחזיקים בה, בתוכך מאושר דרכך דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיך shalom.
Please be seated. So, Rabbi Weiner read on page 130 of the Etz Chaim Chumashim, the Etz Chaim commentaries, the very thing we're going to be studying at Torah study tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on Zoom, talking about how Abraham was now old, advanced in years, and what it means to age with dignity. But I didn't want to necessarily talk about that tonight. I wanted to talk about what Jenna was going to be talking about tomorrow when she becomes a bat mitzvah with her sister Chloe. They become benot mitzvah tomorrow morning at 10:30. If anybody wants to come and watch two young ladies become Jewish adults in the eyes of the Jewish community, she will be reading on page 127. So I would like to draw your attention to the beginning of this week's Torah portion, Chayei Sarah, where Sarah's lifetime, the span of Sarah's life, came to 127 years, not too shabby. Anybody who is here on Purim knows that 127 were the provinces of Shushan during Esther's time. But Sarah then dies in Kiryat Arba, which is now Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that tonight. Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, now Hebron. Where did she die? Did she die in Kiryat Arba, or was it Hebron? Kiryat Arba means district of four, and Hebron was the place where four famous people lived. Rashi, who's a famous Torah commentator, offers the explanation that Hebron was called Kiryat Arba because four couples were eventually buried there. The four couples were Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah. You might say, well, what about Rachel? Rachel was buried in Bethlehem. Another commentator, Kli Yakar, asked the question, why does the Torah mention both places in reference to Sarah's death? If it's about where people were buried, then it would have been okay to just say, hey, she was buried in Kiryat Arba. That would have sufficed. But this commentator, Kli Yakar, explains that the place actually had four names: Mamre, Eshkol, Hebron, and Kiryat Arba. And each name corresponds to a different way a person can die. A person can die as a result of one's sins. Mamre, which comes from the root lamrut, to rebel, like when one rebels against God's will and it causes their death. Another way one can pass is as a result of another person's sins, which corresponds to the name Eshkol, which comes from the root word sikol, or bereaved, like extreme bereavement, like when a parent loses a child, which Sarah thought she had lost in last week's Torah portion when Abraham took Isaac for a sacrifice. Although it didn't happen, she didn't know that. And third, we have a natural death. That is, when someone's work is finished on this earth, And Kiryat Arba corresponds to the way that 4 foundations, earth, wind, fire, and water, separate when they have achieved life's purpose. And finally, the 4th way a person can die is when they are connected so closely with God that their soul departs to join with God's. The root comes from the word chibur, or connection. Moses, Aaron, and Miriam all had this experience with God, the highest level of death that one can have. So the 2 names of the town used in connection with Sarah's death refer to the deaths which are not in connection with any kind of sin. Sarah died in her time, 127 years, when her work was finished, according to the sages, without sin. And that's why she had the Torah portion named for her. May we all endeavor to live a good and useful life as Sarah did. Shabbat Shalom. We continue with the singing of our anthem, Ivdu.
1, 2, 3, 4. Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. Bo'u lefanav birnana. Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. Bo'u lefanav birnana. Ki el melech gadol Adonai. 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 Idu et Hashem b'simcha. Simcha, simcha, simcha. Bo'u, bo'u, bo'u. Lefanav birnana. Idu et Hashem b'simcha. Simcha, simcha, simcha. Bo'u, bo'u. Lefanav birnana. Ki el melech gadol Adonai. 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 Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. Simcha, simcha, simcha. Bo'u, bo'u, lefanav birnana. Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. Simcha, simcha, simcha. Bo'u, bo'u, lefanav birnana. Ivdu.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Karen Butterfield, and I represent the Board of Directors tonight. I want to thank everyone who has joined us for tonight's Shabbat service. I have a few short announcements. Food insecurity has not disappeared because of COVID. In fact, it has become worse. With your help, we can feed the hungry of DuPage County at our virtual Gary Gardner Memorial Bowls for Hunger fundraiser this year on Sunday, November 7th. Make a suggested donation of $20 and you too can make a difference. On Sunday, November 14th, during religious school, the Sisterhood will be having a Hanukkah sale. Stock up on candles, gelt, and all of your Hanukkah needs. And then save the date, Friday, November 19th. This is very important. It's 7:30, Friday, November 19th. Everybody mark it down. We honor our longtime executive director, Carol Meyer, at Shabbat services and say thank you to her for her many years of hard work, dedication, devotion to Etz Chaim. I hope you can make it. Thank you to our rabbis for leading our service and to the Life Tree Ramblers for providing such beautiful music tonight. To Mike Sawyer for ushering and Ken Siegel for being our greeter. Tonight's Tigonig bags are sponsored by the Rashid family in honor of Jenna and Chloe, each becoming bat mitzvah. Mazel tov to Jenna and Chloe. Next Friday night, November 5th, we will have 2 services, a Tat Shabbat at 6 p.m. and our traditional Shabbat service at 7:30 p.m. Shabbat Shalom.
I want to add one additional thanks to Roberto for setting up our sound and working his magic on all of this. He's sitting over there in the corner, but he is the wizard behind the curtain over there doing all of this and making sure that you can hear all of us. So, Toda Rabbah. We continue now with Aleinu, our concluding prayers, and it's my pleasure to invite up Sonny Gershman and Karen Otaras to help us open the ark doors. Please rise. You can find words similar. You can find the words on page 283 in the middle.
Let us adore the ever-living God and render praise unto you, who spread out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above, and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. We bow the head in reverence and worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One. Praise be God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One. Praise be God. V'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One. Praise be God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One. Praise be God. Amen.
Please be seated. We take a moment in our service to think about those who are no longer with us, our loved ones, our friends and family in this community who have died in this season and in years past. And this week, we remember Dennis Dreyer, brother-in-law of Alan and Helene Frankfeder, Anna Lux, mother-in-law of Shyla Lux, Edward Ross, father of Paul Ross, Paul Spinadell, father of Joel Spinadell, Sylvia Frankel, mother of Sidney Frankel, grandmother of Daniel Frankel, Paul Jaffe, brother-in-law of Lawrence Nymark, Florence Singer, mother of Richard Singer, Jack Bacall, father of Deborah Bacall, Dorothy Hunter, grandmother of Lynn Whippich, Irving Lewis, father of Linda Mayer, Herbert Lux, husband of Shiloh Lux, Louis Myers, grandfather of Ellen Gossage, Gabriella Miller, niece of Barbara Uditsky, J.R. Mitchell, nephew of John Wilkerson, Michael Moss, father of Brenda Feinberg, Frank Sirota, grandfather of Philip Bogelub, Cecile and David Rosenthal, brothers of Diane Rosenthal Hurt, Adelie Staller, niece of Michael Staller and Rochelle Koenig, Stuart Weiss, my grandfather, John and Joyce Goubet, special friends of Charles Lunar, Mary Lerner, mother of Lawrence Lerner, Mary Jo Sarzinski, mother of Jody Freeman, Sarah Goltz Landau, mother-in-law of Eileen Landau, Joan Gorbian, mother of Diane Rubachek, grandmother of Adam Rubachek, Sarah Warshawski, mother of Roy Warshawski, Shirley Berkovitz, grandmother of Marla Friedman, Sidney A. Feiss, stepfather of Ron Weininger, Gerald Martin, father of Tammy Lefkowitz, Max Porton, father of Art Porton, Lottie Spurgell, friend of Etz Chaim. And we mourn the recent passing of Annette Fingert, mother of Nadine Gilbert, Michael Gilbert, brother of Jen Gasinski, Dean Brayton, cousin of Ann Stewart, Maxine Bronson Jason, mother of Beth Titiner. We join together as one community for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, be'chayechon uvyomechon uvchayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv imru, amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shemei dekudasha b'richum, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
Ve'imru, amen. Ve'imru, amen. Ve'imru, amen. Ve'imru, amen.
Please be seated. We conclude our services now with the singing of Adama V'Shamayim.
And please, if you would like to dance, you may.
There's room for dancing.
There's room for dancing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Adama v'shamayim, chom ha'esh, zil ha'mayim. Ani margish zot begufi, beruchi benishmati. Adama v'shamayim, chom ha'esh, zil ha'mayim. Ani margish zot begufi, beruchi benishmati. love the earth, love the sky. Heat of fire, drop of water. I can feel it in my body, in my spirit, in my soul. Everybody on your feet! Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Oh, Adama, Adama, Bishamayim, Bishamayim. Hom ha'e, Hom ha'e, Zilamayim. אני מרגיש סוף בגופי, ברוחי ונשמתי. Everybody now! אדמה, אדמה, בשמיים, בשמיים. חום האש, חום האש, זלמים, זלמים. אני מרגיש סוף בגופי, ברוחי ונשמתי. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Oh. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, hey.
While everybody catches their breath and heads back to their seat, it's my pleasure to invite up the Rashid family to join us for Kiddush and Motzi. That includes everybody who's becoming B'not Mitzvah tomorrow, too. Come on. You know this. We've been practicing. Chloe, you get to follow. Okay? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lenikra'ei kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidasha mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. And we'll say an early l'chaim. After we say motzi, we have to-go neg bags out in the lobby. So while we can't eat here, that's why we have individually packaged things. There is grape juice and challah for everybody to eat. Let us join in motzi together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. You don't want to eat this one, it's going to be stale. One of the ones that's in the bag, it'll be better. It's been up here for like 2 months. Nice tips. Thank you. Well, it's been up here for 2 months, so like exactly. It's a little, it feels a little hard, but you know, it's individually packaged.
Key information.
Right, exactly. See you tomorrow morning.